Dungeon Master has placed you in a dreadfully precarious position.
Dungeon Master and Dwarven Sword Master, Hobgoblins, Dwarves, Elves, and Halflings are some of the characters and terms used in this very complicated and controversial game.
You're playing the most phenomenal game ever created.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome, chat. It's another Natural Ones. It's Wednesday, and joined as always by Victor. What's up, Vic?
Goedendag allemaal.
And Greg's usually here as well. He's here less often than Vic, but he's here pretty frequently, and he's our guest today. So, despite him being here all the time, everyone be nice to him like he's a guest, okay? Like,
No, don't be nice to him.
I'm not. Yeah, the stream happens usually during work, so I have to sometimes miss it. But I'm trying to be there if I can.
yeah. But Greg from Chronicles of Aeres, a lot of you I think are familiar with his Chronicles of Aeres book. Is it still on sale on DriveThruRPG right now?
No, it's back to the regular
Oh, well, you missed
price
out.
of $7.99, which is still quite
Oh, that's
reasonable.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like a 400-page book or something like that. But
Yeah.
if you're familiar with that, I think we've talked about it here on the show before and shown it. And he's working on a new game. I think this game is a little bit closer to your heart, Greg. I think what I get from you is you like two things. You like high fantasy, like high mythical, Tolkien-esque fantasy, and you like big stompy monsters.
Yeah, I like post-apocalyptic. I like anything from the 80s. You know,
Okay.
I'm the nostalgia guy. Like all my stuff is nostalgia bombs.
But
Amen.
yeah, so Greg is working on Titans of Fallen Earth. I want to keep adding a "the" there. I don't know why. I want to keep saying Titans of the Fallen Earth, but
Yeah.
it's just Titans of Fallen Earth. I'm interested in it because it's a little outside of my wheelhouse personally. Like I not that I'm opposed to it. It's just I've never really got into BattleTech, Robotech. I liked kaiju stuff as a kid. You know, like I watched all the bad Godzilla movies. Like
Yeah.
what was the one? My brother would rent it all the time because he's weird. The Son of Godzilla one.
Oh,
Where-
that one's bad.
It was bad, but like he'd rent it all the time, and we had to suffer through that because we always had to watch each other's movies that we rented from Blockbuster. So like I would rent like Jackie Chan's The Legend of Drunken Master, and then my brother would rent The Son of Godzilla, and that one was it's just like the whole movie is just like a slice of life Godzilla with his son or whatever. It's ridiculous.
Yes.
but I did enjoy that kind of stuff. And so I'm interested in the game and like the route you're going to take it. And I'm hoping Son of Godzilla so bad it's great. I kind of want to go back and rewatch it now that we're talking about it. I'm going to go look it up when this is
Not.
over.
It's not rewatchable.
And thank you, Mercurius. You're always so generous gifting other people memberships. I hope they stick around if they enjoy what I offer here. But thank you so much for gifting the memberships. I'll have to check on who that was. Come join the Gilded server, get access to the back end side where we have all the really good conversations.
Yeah.
Critical Dom mentioned Lancer, so whenever somebody mentions Lancer in the chat, take a shot.
Okay. Well,
I have coffee, but I'll.
Yeah, I can't do that anymore, sadly.
Yeah.
I've been wanting this game since Greg told me not to touch Lancer.
Yeah.
I've never even looked at Lancer, but it looks like not my cup of tea either. So,
No, it's not anyone's cup of tea except for like one person.
No,
Um,
I'm looking forward to your game, Greg, because you at least also made sure. Because I'm not, my cup of tea isn't really like mechs and stuff like that. I don't really like being a pilot of big stumpy things or vehicles. I like being the dude on the ground. But Greg made sure that the rules can also be used for that. So like, yeah, like it sounds really
Yeah,
cool.
for real.
Being
If
like
you
a
don't,
soldier, like in a city, while like a giant robot is in the distance, like destroying it, and you were like on a mission, trying to get out in time. Like, yeah, that sounds cool.
or like, I've got NPCs where you can. So one of the NPCs is like an '80s action hero dude, and like he can hire you to like go on bounty hunter missions.
Yeah, that sounds
Like you
awesome.
can get in his like souped up like supercharger and like race mutants and shit. So it's like pretty sweet.
Matt Crafty Mess says touching Lancer is akin to lying with men.
Shot number
Wow.
2.
Well, it's going to be quite a look here because everyone's talking about Lancer now.
Number 3.
Lancer's 70% good, and the other 30% makes it utterly unplayable. So therefore, that makes it 100% bad.
The thing about Lancer, the thing about any game is that if you're a creator making a game and you go into it with some kind of big political supposition right from the beginning, and your whole game is like built on that foundation, it's going to come through in the whole game.
Yeah.
You can just make this like, this is my communist utopia game, and then just ditch that. Like the whole game has this underlying current of stupidity through it, and that's like part of the reason why I don't like it. But yeah.
I don't like games that have like I don't mind messaging in games. It's totally fine.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But like
in
like,
media in general, but don't let the message suck away the fun.
Yeah, like
I don't know. I like the messaging being part of the setting. Like it should fit the setting and not be meta. Like not be like to real life.
yeah, well, the answer is so because he did that, and the answer is like the setting is a utopia, so you can never die. Your pilot can always be resurrected or cloned. You can never lose your mech. If your mech is destroyed, you get it back within 24 hours for free. It's like grown in a lab. It's like little stuff like that makes it silly to me.
Well, let's not talk about a bad game. Like a game that is not going to be as fun as Titans of Fallen Earth. I have the trailer here. I think we should maybe just start with the trailer and give the trailer a watch and see how that goes.
The world ended in a sea of fire on September 1st, 1989. The bombs took out more of us than of them. There are survivors crawling through the ruins, trapped by endless storms of smoke and ash. Now those things are coming back, just like they did before. But this time, we'll be waiting. This time, we can stop them.
Yes. All right.
Nice.
I like the trailer.
Yeah.
He didn't have a horribly cringe voice actress, so that was good.
Yeah.
I like the that was good. That'd get me pumped to play it. I love the
Yeah.
80s aesthetic. So, so Beardy
it's
Ben
awesome.
Pretty Ben says okay fire, and Ranos liked it too. Pretty good dude. Crafty Matt, I love that the art is 1980s Saturday morning cartoons without being straight up anime. I mean, you're drawing from a lot of different influences in this too. I mean,
Yeah. Like this is our first book where we have like almost one artist do the entire book, which I've never done before. And,
I think, I mean,
yeah, it helps.
I think it does help. It does create a more cohesive presentation and vision to the game. Like if you can get away with that, not to toot my own horn, but I think that's partly like why my stuff does okay, is because when you can present that unified vision, it just not that having lots of different artists is bad, but that unified visual presentation is that is something subtle that is like a subconscious thing that I think people don't pick up on. So
I'll get there someday. Don't worry.
Yeah. So what this is it is an RPG, but it has a lot of strategic wargaming elements to it. So it's faction-based play, with campaigns and missions that are designed to take you into ever-increasing battlefield scenarios. And the harder it gets, the more likely you're going to die. Your mech is going to be destroyed. So you have to constantly defeat these monsters, which there's no ceiling to how powerful they are. The GM can make them as powerful as he wants. And we have like charts and charts and charts of powers and abilities that you can build kaiju out of. But then you can, in between missions, with your experience points, you can upgrade your giant mech or get powers of your own, more ammo, more weapons, more armaments, more engine core, and just eventually become like super powerful Titan like, war machine. And that's how you progress in the game until you hit that apocalyptic level where this is it. Your actions are either going to save humanity, or you're gonna die like forgotten. And that's the end of the campaign pretty much.
Yeah, sounds awesome. Very the name is escaping me. I'm tired. What are those movies? There's two of them. Came out a couple of years ago. Mechas versus Kaiju.
Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim,
yeah.
Yep.
I'm gonna throw the link to. So, Greg, you're doing a Kickstarter for this. I just want to get that out there too. The link is in the video description, and I'm gonna put it in chat right here too, so that you guys can get notified of when this thing launches. I'd love to see it be successful. I'd love to see something different. That's unique and different. Haven't really seen much of this before. I think there's been a few attempts at kaiju games in the past, kaiju versus mecha games. I think there's one, we've talked about it before on the Gilded server. I think you brought it up. There's one out there. There might have been a Kickstarter for it, but it uses like the Fudge or Fate engine or something.
Yeah, they're all like that. They're all aside from BattleTech, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to make this game, is because I was looking for a kaiju versus mecha game that was cool, and there aren't any. They're all like super over the top 70s robot Transformers, like Power Rangers type of stuff.
Yeah.
Or they're like Fate Core, Powered by the Apocalypse stuff has nothing to do with wargaming. And I was like, I want to make something that scratches that itch. So that's what I wanted to do. So
it's more like Mechton Zeta and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's not even Mechton Zeta. I want to go back to Terminator and Aliens and Mad Max and like the hard-hitting post-apocalyptic sci-fi stuff with like the gritty
Robojock.
realism. Yeah,
Know that movie, Robojocks? Also Mech movie.
I remember that.
Well, I mean, you sent me the PDFs here too. Got them here. I like the art. First of all, the cover is pretty good here. This is
That's the PDF cover. Yeah, that's just like the
Nice.
main book cover is something else.
so people can see. Well,
So
let's see if I-
basically, all of the text has been written. What you're seeing here is a kind of a big chunky preview, but a lot of it still needs to be laid out and edited. But all the art is done, all the text is done, so the game is almost complete.
Yeah.
And when the Kickstarter launches, the game should be complete. So most of the run of the Kickstarter will be for playtesting and maybe tweaking a few things. You're not going to be paying into money for extra art like a lot of
Yeah.
projects do or anything like that.
I think
Probably
this is.
So
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, probably just, and also to recoup all your costs, because I am sure you put a lot of money already in this. So
Crafty Matt has asked like 20 questions. So more Pacific Rim and less Super Sentai. There is Pacific Rim there. There's Evangelion as well. Neon Genesis Evangelion is one of my favorites from the 90s, and it has like a weird kind of like you get this like almost Armageddon vibe that gets worse and worse the more that the show goes on, and that's kind of what I wanted to have with the type of scenarios in this game. It's like you keep fighting these really bizarre like kaiju that are like not anything that you would expect to see, like Lovecraftian stuff. So yeah.
Paul asks a question. He says, on average, how long are campaigns set to last? How many sessions? Is this something that you envision that you could go on pretty much indefinitely? You mentioned that monsters the kaiju can get as strong as you want them to be. There's no limit to the scale, essentially. So
That's
I assume it is as long as the GM and the players are willing to go. It sounds like you could go as long as you would want to.
Right. I envision a wargaming type of theater where, let's say, you start off in Japan, which is the high-tech city, Osaka, and you kind of branch out into East Asia and Russia, and maybe you flesh out the world map and you defeat fortresses and command points for the enemy faction and eventually make your way to the home base. I would say somewhere about 10 to 12 sessions is when the gameplay might start getting a little bit out of hand. Like just in terms of the power scale, and you're rolling like 60 d6 and that type of thing, which is fun, but still, like, it's designed for one shots. It's designed for player versus player combat. You can run a Bronstein with this.
You're gonna get us sued, man. Come on.
Yeah.
You can run a Bronstein. You can run faction play.
A kaiju stein.
Yeah.
Mechstein.
A Mechstein.
Mechstein.
No, that's cool. I think the addition of player versus player, that is something that I think a lot of modern RPGs are kind of afraid to lean into, and that's something that's in the root of the hobby, right? Like that's something when you're reading 0E and it's telling you that 50 players can play in this game, part of me tells me like there's going to be competition between players, between adventuring parties, between factions that arise, and patrons, and all those sorts of things. High level domain play is going to turn into a war game. So I think that in and of itself, the ability to have player versus player, I think that could make it like indefinite almost, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Where
and
there's
that's
really
part of the reason why I have
limit.
pre-statted kaiju and the bestiary that have like everything you need. So if you get to the table, you can have a couple of players actually play as the kaiju versus other players who are playing as Titan pilots, and then that's a dangerous scenario because the GM might be more discretionary in how he does his attacks and uses powers, but players, it's all no holds barred. The players will do whatever they can to kill each other, right? So that can be kind of an interesting, strategic scenario.
You could do like a one shot like that old game Rampage, where you let the players create their own kaiju or even mechas, and then you pit them against each other for like see who wins. Just have like a whole tournament. Who knows?
You can play as the kaiju and be a quote unquote good guy Kaiju, which is your Attack on Titan, or maybe even a little bit of Ultraman or Kaiju number 8 type of fantasy, where
Hmm.
you saw in the trailer the sequence of the guy transforming into the giant monster. You're basically like a radioactive mutant, like the Hulk, who has this power. And that's something you can do.
That's
Or
fun.
you can play as the enemy Kaiju as well.
Mhm.
I think that'd be fun. Mercurius says, so you mean multi-objective game, MOG? I've never heard that term before, but yes, I think that adds an extra element. I think the pure cooperative only kind of game, while it's fun, of course, I'm not going to downplay that. I think if your play group is willing to go player versus player, I think that does add another dimension. So having it like explicit, if it's explicitly codified in your rules, Greg, I think that's definitely a unique step in that direction as far as like presentation and expectations of games, in my opinion. So
Yeah, I don't want to stretch it too thin and make the identity of the game too weak, but I also wanted to. There's so many things you can do with this genre, with mechs and giant robots and giant monsters and stuff, that like to just limit it doesn't make any sense to me. So like solo play is supported. I'm gonna have a few sections about how to do that in the GM chapter. You can play as a one player with one GM. So basically, you're a solo hero fighting stuff off on your own. You can
Yeah.
have a big party, you can have a small party, and the game should be able to scale accurately according to what you want to do there.
cool. Thank you for the $2 though, Mercurius. Appreciate it. Yeah, so I'm looking at it here. I like that you had a comic in here at the beginning. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a little comic, kind of a comic book, to give you a feel for the vibe of the game.
But
A lot
I
of
like,
people don't like the war at the beginning, but that's all of our books. We always have the war right
Yeah.
at the beginning.
yeah, they can go make their own book,
Yeah.
Basically, there's your world map, what's left of the Earth.
It's a cool map. I like that.
Kaiju emergent zones coming out of Europe,
Yeah.
Greenland.
Yeah, wherever there's a glacier, basically the Kaiju emerge from underneath
okay.
the ice. And that's how they started to rampage across the globe.
Can't wait to make my windmill mecha.
Can I make my favorite mecha is that the Mexican Gundam. I want to make that one.
Mhm.
Do it.
every time I see that image of the Mexican Gundam, I love it. the little sombrero, like mecha hat. It's great.
So like South America, there is the Forbidden Zone, and it's basically, so not to get too deeply into the lore, but there's the whole game kind of revolves around this energy source, this alien energy source called the Trace, and that's what gives the Kaiju their life and their power, and the aliens power their machines with the Trace, but it mutates anything that it touches. So humans, like, it's lethal to human beings, but it can turn like a jungle into this weird giant like alien, like John Carter of Mars type of like alien plants and like piranha plants and monsters, like, and you can go explore that, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, sounds fun. Special forces team going into like a mutated like Amazon jungle.
Yeah, exactly. Like you get a hint, command from the military that's like, we've got a hint that there could be some trace deposits being stored underground here. Go collect them. You can't take a Titan, it's too tight in there. You have to go underground. That type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dig it. I like this art.
Yeah.
I do think getting like only a smaller handful of artists is really like, I'm impressed. It's really paid off in the way it looks, and your layout's really good too. It's nice to look at. But
thanks.
I know it's not just like, oh, it's a nice looking art book. It's not like Mortborg,
Yeah. I mean, our rules chapters, which are almost strictly about the rules and don't have much lore, are what you're looking at the character creation rule chapter.
Mm-hmm.
That's just your standard black text on kind of a simple gray. So it's very legible. But then when you get into the war and some of the crazier
Yeah,
stuff, it gets more stylistic.
It looks
Yeah.
good though. I think it looks good. So you got your character creation. So you're building like a pilot for your mech.
Yeah.
And this pilot obviously has stats, and then your mech has stats. Is there
Yeah.
rules? This is going to be a question that a lot of people have, because like I have like a mech warrior on my desk, on my bookshelf over here. People love their battle tech, and there was that intention, well, that way of mixing battle tech with mech warrior, um, is this going to have rules for, like, can you run because this is going to add again to that question of how long can this campaign go for. Is there rules for, like, we want to do an adventure or a few sessions as just the characters, and
Sure.
maybe we need to like go on foot and infiltrate a facility or something like that, run a few adventures that way. We can't take a mech in, we need to send in like this small sabotage strike team or something like that.
Yeah.
So that aspect is supported as well.
Yeah. So it's a skill-based system and a D6 system, which is very familiar to most of you. If you played WEG Star Wars, if you played any kind of big Shadowrun type of system, you're going to see a lot of familiarities there. So your skills as a pilot translate to when you step into your Titan. So all your combat skills, most of your non-combat skills, you go into the Titan, you can do them in the Titan. So there's a lot of, you can step in and out, or there's some scalability there. Now we don't have like, it's not like half the book or anything is not focused on boots on the ground gameplay. I do devote a good chunk of the GM kind of reference chapter towards how to run that, with some scenarios and guidelines and a few things that players can do. But ultimately, I'd say the majority of the game is going to be Titan on Titan combat.
Yeah.
Cool. See ya, John.
And so
McCarthy.
the thing about this is we encourage you to have multiple characters as well. Because if your Titan gets completely destroyed, your pilot remains. If your pilot dies and the Titan remains, you can make a new pilot and step into that same Titan. Or if you both die, you're done. You have to completely re-roll.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. A stable of characters. I think that, I mean, again, that's another old school element that I think is lost. I hear it all the time with, like, I want to just be the main character hero. I don't want to have to switch between characters. And it's like, well, I get that logic. I get that mindset. And I think maybe you of all people would get that as well too, Greg. I mean, given how you run like D&D and stuff like that, and your Ares stuff, or Irie stuff. But I do think that the stable of characters, it does seem to fit something like this, especially if you're leaning into that war game element as well.
Yeah.
It's not a Death Spiral type of game or an ultra super duper lethal game. I mean, a lot of your war machines have ejection pods and ways for you to escape and egress. There's camouflage systems you can use to try and hide, stuff like that. But it certainly can be very lethal. Like you're not going to just waltz into combat and come out the hero every time. Like you might be seriously maimed, or like there's almost like a traveler aspect to it where you can die like on your first mission, like just get obliterated by a Godzilla's atomic breath just fries you and you have to like start over. That can happen depending on how the dice line up.
Is there anything in particular, because I'm just kind of scrolling through, is there anything in particular in this first PDF that you want me to highlight or you want to talk about? I like the way, I like the way it's laid out. So is this section here for constructing your own mech? Like how is that going to work? So I'm assuming I'm assuming you're going to have like pre-built mechs that players can choose from, but can they also build their own mech from the start?
So this character creation chapter goes over a lot of the core rules of the game, like the attributes and how mechs are laid out and what they're composed of and their defense rating, damage resistance. We also have simple rules, which were just a paragraph there, but are expounded upon later on in the book. So normally in a BattleTech style game, when you have a giant robot, you can focus. It has like 2 arms, 2 legs, torso, head, and you can kind of focus on an arm and take it out, and then focus on a head and take it out. You know, so we have that's reflected in the character sheet right there. But we also have a simplified rule system where if you want it to be faster and you don't want to do that, you can make the entire character just have one value and just go in that way as well, which has its pros and cons. You know, obviously, if it's you lose a lot of the strategic value of combat if you do that, but it can technically make the game speed up a lot more if you're in a hurry.
I like that character sheet. Looks cool.
Yeah, it. I think I need more space for my multi-page backstory, though, Greg. I'm gonna need you to fix that. You know.
So if you scroll, if you go back to the PDF, and scroll up some, let's keep going a little bit more. Okay, core attributes. Scroll back down. We're looking for backgrounds. So we got our core attributes. Scroll down, scroll down. Secondary attributes, keep going. We're getting there. We're close. Yeah, reputation. Okay, skills. Let's get past the skills. There's a few charts here. Backgrounds. Okay. Yeah. So these are our classes, essentially, but they're pretty simple. Basically, you choose your background for your pilot, and you can level that up with experience points if you wish, and each level provides you with some kind of special ability or bonus. But this is technically all you need to understand what your character is in the world as well. Like you're not going to write like a very long, like 1 or 2 page backstory, because you have a background there. Like, you know, you're a bounty hunter. It tells you what they do. You're a xenobiologist. It tells you what that's about. So that's one way to kind of simplify that whole situation.
We've got some questions here. The OGGM is asking, is there going to be Transformers, Combiners, Sentai?
No. That's all wacky stuff. This is more of a down-to-earth, post-apocalyptic Terminator vibe. And to be honest, I don't see a future for like transforming robots and combiners and stuff in this game. This is more of like a BattleTech style.
And then Ivan asks, just arrived. Well, welcome. But I would like to ask, I think you've answered this already, but he missed it probably. How you can play with play kaijus, the background similar to the characters of the video game Rampage. There's been a few people in the comments asking about Rampage. Can we do Rampage? You know, I love that game.
Which is weird because like, who the hell remembers Rampage? Like,
I do. They made a movie of it with The Rock, and it was actually pretty decent.
Oh, that's decent. It's not bad. All of The Rock's movies are decent. None of them are good.
Yeah.
But yes, so one of the character options is what we call a kaijin. It's a mysterious person, someone that can transform into a kaiju. So think of the Guyver, you know, that type of thing going on there. So that's just your standard pilot with this mutational power that lets him do that. So instead of a giant war machine, you have that. And that's a totally different gameplay style because you don't have ammunition and guns and weapons and armor. You have like atomic breath and powers that require energy to use, like from your like a life force or whatever. So kind of almost a totally different scenario there if you choose that character type.
Yeah.
But we encourage kind of mixing and matching on occasion because, you know, there might be some kaiju that are completely immune to bullets, for example. Like that is a thing that can happen in the game. There's damage resistances, and a damage resistance makes something almost completely invulnerable. So part of the strategy is trying to figure out what the enemies are weak against and exploit that.
I like that. I mean, I like the idea of like, I mean, it's like kind of D&D where, you know, you don't, I mean, you can have a party of all fighting men or all wizards, but the all wizards ones might not do too great. But you know, that diversity in the party as far as roles is is useful. It's good.
Yeah, I mean,
it breeds
you
teamwork.
can wade into the jungle with a group of 5 guys with exoskeletons, like in James Cameron's Avatar, and they all have these giant, like 40mm cannons, but you might get taken apart because you didn't have the guy with the flamethrower. You need that guy with the flamethrower if you're going in the jungle.
Yeah.
That type of stuff.
Well, diversity is our greatest strength. We all know this.
Yes.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
I'm not getting any ESG money for this one.
I mean, this might be for something later as far as when we get to the actual like system, because I think there's a few things you're doing that we've talked about in private that or on the server at least, that are different than I think people expect. But they're asking, Malachi's asking, is there giga damage?
Giga damage. So damage works by, if you play Palladium, it's somewhat of a familiar system. You have to overcome defense rating with your damage to deal actual hit point damage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another system that places kind of a check and balance on how you can kill like enemy kaiju. A guy in the ground, like you see in Godzilla with an M16, is gonna do jack shit, right? Because
he's never gonna roll enough.
He's never going to roll enough to get past the defense rating of like Godzilla. But that's why you have to step into your Titan. And every time that you overcome defense rating with an attack, it damages the armor. So it gets progressively easier and easier as the fight goes along.
Well, the way you've explained it to me is that, it's a D6 system, and it's like giga damage is basically just roll more D6s. So,
exactly.
a guy with an M16, he does 1D6. A atomic breath does like 100 D6. So, if the creature has like 100 defense rating, well, that 1D6 is not going to do anything, but, the 100 D6 might.
Yeah, attack nuke. Like, you can have a tactical nuclear weapon in the game and fucking just destroy, but, there's some kaiju that might just shrug that off,
Yeah.
Depends.
And well, one thing with attacks too, while we're talking about that you told me that I think is interesting, and is that like, because these are big stompy monsters and these are big stompy robots, they're big targets, so you're not rolling to hit. Like, it's a given that you're probably going to hit, is what you told me. And
that's
so
right. All attacks are assumed to hit, with one exception. You can use there's a few core attributes. One of them is finesse, which is kind of like your agility. And you can use that dice pool to evade. So that's one way you can evade attacks, but that's pretty much the only way. Otherwise, all attacks are assumed to hit just because you're in these giant war machines versus kaiju. So it's going to be almost next to impossible for something to like dodge like your missile volley completely.
Tora being sarcastic. Automatic hits. What is this Matt Colville crap? Well, I think you're solving the problem in a different way, in a better way than I think. It makes sense for this. This is one of those situations for those out there that are might be interested in design. This is one of those instances where the design warrants this mechanic, and then it fits because, again, these are big robots. They're big targets. It's going to be kind of hard to miss one. Whereas like when you're doing a sword fight or something, or shooting bows and arrows in a fantasy game, it's kind of stupid just to assume that every attack automatically hits. Like, that just doesn't make any logical sense to me. And Matt Colville,
it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Matt Colville has bad design instincts if he thinks that's what's going that route. I think it's just terrible design.
Good capitalism instincts, though, with that whole dice thing.
It's true. Actually, kind of off topic, but I got it's green. It's not gonna work. Look at that.
No, it's a predator dice.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a predator dice. There you go. I have some of those D10 D20s. They're like the D20 that goes to 10 twice, and you can get them on Amazon for like $10, $11. They're super cheap.
Yeah.
It's like,
so why is he wasting money for them?
Really strange. Anyways, so here we're at the you can use, you're saying you can use experience points to purchase upgrades to your pilot yourself, right? But then also to your mech. Is XP
Yeah, you
like
can upgrade your pilot if you choose. So that's where you can. There's training in the game. So I have my exposure to old school systems has made me include a lot of old school style stuff in this game. So in order to use your experience points to increase your skill level in something, you're going to have to go through training. You're going to have to find a mentor, or somebody who can help you through that process. And that's downtime. And things might happen during downtime that you need to keep track of time. For example, if your pilots are off somewhere training and kaiju attack the base, what are you going to do? You might have to roll a second character. That's why we encourage multiple characters.
Yeah.
I like that? I don't get this reference. It's probably from an anime that I've not watched. But does being a mecha pilot grant your character a seduction bonus on females? I hope people get the reference. Is that like an Evangelion reference?
I mean, I know I've seen a fuck ton of mecha anime, and that seems like a trope that's in a lot of them. But if it's something that's more specific, that goes over my head.
So that's cool. I like training rules. That's something like in AD&D that I think sets first edition apart from, say, like 0E or BX or any of those kinds of games. Oh, okay. He told us.
Yeah.
Megas XLR.
Yeah. Good show.
So the experience point system is pretty simple. You have a chart of things that give you XP. If you just do a succeed on a skill roll, you get a little bit, but barely nothing, all the way up to completing a whole campaign. You get a ton. Like with 15 experience points, you could do all kinds of stuff to your Titan. You can get new armor, new weapons. Like there's a lot of things you can do. But yeah, anytime you upgrade your Titan or upgrade your pilot or train or repair requires downtime. It's not an instantaneous grow in a lab process, Lancer.
Yeah.
That's funny. So you got a rules summary here. That's nice. I should have done something like this in Atomic Punk, and I didn't. So people just have to figure it out.
I need to go back and edit it, but yeah, basically, if you don't feel like reading through all that bullshit, you can flip over here and
That's nice for reference, though. You know,
like
jog your memory.
Yeah, we have a whole chapter on the trace, what it does. It basically creates these Fallout style mutants if humans are exposed to it. Scroll down one more page. And we have a chart there that tells you first level of exposure, sickness sets in, and like what happens to your character as this sickness goes along. And eventually you turn into a monster and you lose your humanity and you become a monster that somebody else has to kill. So that's one thing that can happen in the game. That's why like getting your mech destroyed is extremely hazardous, because the mechs are powered by the trace in some way. And so it can cause contamination that you have to avoid and things like that. But on the flip side, you basically have a ghost vacuum cleaner that you can vacuum up the trace like in Command and Conquer, when they're sucking up the Tiberium.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of a currency in the game, where since everything runs on it and it's very expensive, you can do that and like get a lot of money that way. So there's an incentive to killing more things and collecting more trace, but there's also a risk.
Yeah.
You get turned into this girl.
Or that's the final stage right there. It's basically like a death claw.
Right here, or
yeah,
nice. What is Gridcom?
Yeah, now we're getting into the three factions. Gridcom
is
the
okay.
Yeah, the Evangelion influence like nerve. Set in Osaka, Japan, cyberpunk, very heavy like cyberpunk, Akira, 80s influences there. They basically control all of Southeast Asia, and they're like the last bastion of humanity. Like that's the only place you're going to find like high-tech cities and technology, and it takes place in an alternate history of the 1980s. So
you kind of did
like a
Well, you kind of did what I'm doing with Atomic Punk, where like the apocalypse happened. I think in Atomic Punk, I have it set in the early '90s, like when the Soviet Union fell. Instead of the Soviet Union falling, just the bombs went off, and that's what ended everything. That's the Soviet Union fell then. But I like that. I think that's fun because then it kind of harkens back. I love watching 80s sci-fi and just seeing the tech and
Yeah.
the expression of it. I like as a kid when you watch original Star Wars and you see everything's like this far future tech, but it's analog. Or when you're reading Traveler and it's the same thing.
Yeah, Alien does that really well.
Yeah, I just think that aesthetic is so cool, and I get maybe some people wouldn't be able to buy that, but these days,
Yeah, I mean, we explain it for each faction what their technology level is. It goes into, video cassettes are being replaced with DVDs, but it's like 1992. So like this faction is advancing like more rapidly because of they've basically find like alien technology and reverse engineered and stuff like that. Whereas the next faction, the US Remnant, are like stuck in Terminator, like wasteland, like disease ridden type of hellhole. And so they don't have the same level of technology. We've got some key NPCs for each faction that you can interact with and how they help you and what they do. All very like old school inspired stuff.
Yeah,
Yes,
like
you
the-
can fight underwater. You can add things to your Titans for underwater missions. You can fly. You can add jetpacks and anti-gravity things.
So I think it was Dom. Dom was asking about can you have flying?
Yeah, yep, it is.
Yeah.
Yep, it's definitely a thing.
Nice.
Charts
I
of
like it.
weapons, charts of upgrades. So each faction has kind of a smaller Titan and a ginormous one.
Mm.
And that is for the purposes of how do you want to design the mission scenario. You can have a group of 5 to 6 players and they're in these kind of small like alien power loader level Titans, or you can have like 1 or 2 players in a giant Pacific Rim Titan,
Mm.
or you can have 5 to 6 in a Pacific Rim Titan and it gets fucking crazy. Like, but it's like a way for you to mix and match the level of the scenario with what the players want to do at the table.
Yeah.
As you can see, I have examples here with full stat blocks that you can plug into the character sheet. It tells you their whole history, so you can get going pretty quick if you go this route.
I like that. Are these all mecha from this one faction?
That's right.
Okay. So then we're in the US Remnant, and they're gonna have their own.
Yeah,
own
see, they're
stuff.
like the post-apocalyptic little map tells you where they are. They're all basically in underground bunkers left over from the Cold War because the United States is like a parched radioactive wasteland. You can't venture above ground for very long, and there's like thousands of kaiju everywhere, so they're just kind of like struggling to survive.
I like it. I like Michael
So
Ironside.
they're all very military based. Like we've got Michael Ironside there.
I mean, that's a good reference for like that 80s,
Oh yeah, like he's like the major general you go to. He gives you missions in the game.
Does Colonel Kurt Sutherland have a Arnie accent?
We have the one staff sergeant from Aliens there, or he could also be from Predator. He's like,
got Solid Snake.
Solid Snake is in there. We do that with
I
all
know
of our
how I'm
stuff.
playing.
Yeah.
But the previous one, Kurt Sutherland, does he have like the Arnie accent? He's like, I'm Kurt Sutherland for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're not. Shut up.
Born and raised.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the real like hard ass, like believes in 100%, wants to kill, like save humanity, but he's not going to pull any punches to do it. Like he will sacrifice like a whole platoon to accomplish a mission if he has to.
So I'm interested in seeing some of their mechs over here. Getting to that.
Yeah, that's the faction that has the people that can, the super soldiers that can transform into giant monsters.
Is that what these guys are?
Yeah, and you can see there's kind of like a the Guyver type of influence there.
Yeah. I love the guy.
But you can design your kaiju that you turn into in any way that you want. You, as long as he's like on 2 legs, you can't like make a centipede or something weird. But you can be a Godzilla type of monster, like we saw earlier with the transformation. But these guys also have, so there's kind of their mechs are more industrial, so they're not
Yeah.
as high tech as the Japanese faction. Like that one on the left, the Bunker Buster class Ellie, it barely has any weapons. Its whole point is to use like the hydraulic pincers to like crush down and like restrain kaiju with like grappling moves.
Mm.
So then the rest of the team can jump in and like finish it off.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a teamwork dynamic there with how you build your mechs.
I like the I do like the design language just artistically. I've always liked that idea of Japanese mechs are spiky and pointy, and and Western mechs are like boxy. They're just big boxes. So
Yeah.
you know, going for that aesthetic, I think is good.
That's the alien faction, the ones who actually unleashed the kaiju and invaded the Earth. You can play as them, but you're not gonna be the good guy. Like these are the literal destroyers of humanity that you're playing as.
But I think that's cool because it does give that sort of like that player versus player aspect. Like it's fun. It could be fun for one play group, like you were talking about, like a Bronstein kind of game, a Mechstein, a Titanstein.
Yeah.
We'll call it a Titanstein. You know, you could have one group of players be running multiple groups. You know, one group of players being playing the bad guys, another group playing the good guys, and having them pitted against each other. As a referee, that like easily generates content for you, as far as like, well, the bad guys are attacking over here, and so then you relay that to the players, and then they go and deal with it. And
yeah,
I don't know, that's fun.
And my thoughts always went back to Command and Conquer and StarCraft for that type of thing. Like these guys would be like the Brotherhood of Nod, or they would be like the Zerg. Like you can play as the Zerg, even though they're technically the bad guys.
Yeah,
you know, or you can play as the Terrans, which are like, you know, the U.S. Remnant. That's the type of dynamic that we were going for.
I think in the one I downloaded here, I can't go any farther than that.
Yeah. It stops at 134.
But you do have your kaijus here.
Ah, crap, kaiju.
Yeah,
I know who's going to be happy.
Where's Ryan Heffelfinger? Where's Curator? He's not in the chat today.
Yeah, if you scroll up to the top, that's a creepy ass kaiju right there.
I like that.
Yeah.
So they all have different powers and abilities, and they're named after like mythological figures. I have some Japanese on the side, so their name is also in Japanese. Cancel me, please cancel me.
Well, I mean, that's a funny thing is I think you did talk to someone who speaks Japanese for this stuff, and I think you had someone come at you a bit when you were initially, I think, were you asking for someone that could help you translate stuff?
Yeah, I was like, I'm making a kaiju game set in Japan. I'm an American. Can you help me with the sci-fi game? And there's like, no, that's cultural appropriation, blah blah. I'm like, fuck off, man. Like, do you think the Japanese care at all? No, they don't.
Well, wasn't he just like also randomly tagged into the conversation and then he just like tried to lecture you and was really shitty? Yeah.
And then like an actual Japanese guy this guy wasn't Japanese either. He's like married to a Japanese woman. And like some actual Japanese guy got tagged in, and his name was like Hitachi or whatever. And he's like, oh, I don't have a problem with it.
But
yeah,
there you go.
The guys started lecturing him.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Now he's just as bad as culturally appropriating his own culture.
Yeah.
This one looks very like Japanese kaiju to me. Like, this one reminds
it's very like chaotic and wobbly, and its movements are erratic and hard to predict. And that thing comes in swarms. So like you better be prepared, because there can be like 50 or 60 of these things like coming after you, like in Starship Troopers.
That's also one of my favorite like post-apocalyptic like vibes. It's like the overgrown like cities, like reclaimed by nature.
Yeah, that's in this game. Your classic War of the Worlds type stuff. There's our Lovecraftian, like giant monster, fucking kaiju. He shoots a laser. Basically, any attack he counterattacks with a nuclear bomb. So like, you have to be really strategic in how you're like gonna try and take him down.
That's
Kind
cool.
of, the layout might be kind of backwards on that, but that's okay. It's fine.
No, it's you're still working on it. I think more than anything, like there's a lot of stuff done here that's, so the people that are interested in supporting the Kickstarter, which I'll put it here, you can notify to be on launch. I'll do it after this, so people don't have, and not everyone has my email address and everything, but yeah, the link is in the video description and in the chat as well. I'll put it in there again.
Thanks. Yeah, the rest of the book is cool. I mean, there's more stuff for that one enemy faction to show, and there's more kaiju to show as well. But the rest of the book is the combat chapter, which is an enormous chapter. Like, combat is the focus of the game. It's got a ton of rules, but it's all very straightforward. There's nothing in there that's like too much bookkeeping.
Mm-hmm.
But my thought was like, all right, I'm watching a cool mecha versus kaiju like movie, and Godzilla's doing this, and like, the military's doing this, and Mecha Godzilla's doing this, and I'm taking notes, and I'm like, I want you to be able to do everything in this movie in the game. Mm-hmm. Like, if the movie shows something that happens, I want you to be able to do it. And so you'll be able to kind of recreate those scenarios and fantasies with this game. Like, that was my goal.
Nice.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're doing it. I think so. I mean, for those out there that are still we didn't really talk too much about the system. Yeah, maybe we could discuss that a little bit, but
sure.
I'm gonna bring us back up. But it's a D6 dice pool, which I think is cool. I'm not just because I have a D6 dice pool game too, but I like WEG Star Wars D6. It's a good solid game, and I think it's one of those games. Like some people don't like dice pool games, but I think dice pool games are cool. I think that they adjudicate things in a different, interesting way than just like a D20 game or like a percentile game or anything like that. Like you can do some cool creative stuff with dice pool systems.
Yeah,
that mathematically is not possible with more tradition what we would view as traditional systems, where like roll this D20 to do the thing or attack or anything like that. So you were talking earlier about just throwing gobs of dice, like which is fun. How does that work out then? Like, what is it? Does it get kind of crazy or what?
Yeah, well, and just a quick history. It started out as a D20 system. I didn't think that worked at all. Went to a D100. That kind of made sense, like in a Palladium type of style, but it didn't have like, I don't know, it didn't have the swinginess or the punch that I was looking for. So eventually went to D6. And at first we did D6s counting successes, which a lot of D6 systems are.
That's what mine does. So
right. But I was like, I want big numbers. I want people to be able to add up dice. So we changed it to additive. So yeah, you're going to roll 20 D6 and add that together. Most people shouldn't have a problem with that. Like, adding D6 is very simple. But there's no +1, +2 modifiers. There's nothing like that. Everything is adding or subtracting D6 from attacks, skill rolls, skill contests that can happen. So yeah, so the bookkeeping should be fairly low. You just need a lot of D6. And we're offering an add-on on the Kickstarter for a bag of like 30 D6 with the numeral face for like $8. So anyone who doesn't have a lot should be able to get it that way.
Nice.
I mean, you can buy bricks of D6s online where they just come like, traded.
Oh yeah, whatever, but those are the digit face or the dot face. And a lot of players don't like to mix the dot face d6s with the numeral face.
Yeah.
It just kind of looks weird. It is, so it's like
The
I'm
numeral's
going with
probably easier for adding and
Yeah.
subtracting and stuff like that. So
pretty much.
you can look at it all. And I think so one thing I think that people might have an issue with, I'm playing devil's advocate here. It's like,
Okay.
well, I have to roll all these d6s and now I got to count them. Immersion ruined, flow broken, which, well, I don't want to answer for you, but my response to that would be like, well, that's because this is a war game. Like when you're as well as a role playing game, and when you're rolling, like you're playing like I play bolt action, which you roll a lot of d6s with that, in bolt action, and so like
Right.
it's not a problem to be rolling d6s and to looking at what you rolled and what is succeeding and what isn't. It's part of the game. It's part, like, you're immersed because it's part of the mechanics of the war game part itself. But I guess, like, would you agree with that? Like, that was part of the goal. Like, that's part
I
of the war
would.
game
And
element.
like, keep in mind that I like to talk about big, huge 40d6 rolls and stuff like that. But to be perfectly honest, those are going to be one-off scenarios in the game.
That could be like a big deal. Like, you fight a kaiju
Yeah.
that he's going to deal 40 d6, and you're like,
Yeah, you see the FOB just like reach into his bucket like 2 hands full, like, okay, he's rolling
Yeah,
attack.
I'm
like, oh shit.
most rolls are going to be somewhere between 2d6 and like 8d6, realistically speaking.
Yeah.
And as you get more powerful, it goes up, but it's not like when you get to the level of like tac nuke, sure, we're talking like 40, 50 d6, but for a good chunk of the game, the math shouldn't be hard for anyone with an IQ above 80 to
Yeah,
figure out
and-
in like 3 seconds.
And a lot of people play like, virtual tabletops and stuff these days, which can handle that stuff like perfectly. You just type in like 20d6 and it just spits out the number immediately. So yeah.
Planet Tobor has a good point here. Like, this is for like a different. This is where I think we need to bridge the gap as designers for a lot of people, because I think that the TTRPG sphere has kind of become, as we've talked about on Twitter with some people, the supile reject sort of kind of person, or they're just like incapable of math. I can't do math. I can't do addition though. Like, well, this isn't the hobby for you, and it never should have been the hobby for you.
But that's why I'm hesitant to lean too heavily into the wording behind this is a war game, this is a Bronstein, this is it, because 90% of my audience are RPG players.
Yeah,
and they don't know what a war game is. Yeah, perhaps they played MechWarrior BattleTech, and that's about it. And it is an RPG at heart. It just that you play on a grid. You can do theater of the mind if you want to, but the game is really designed for you to play on either a hex grid or a square grid if you want to be military style with miniatures. And that's just how it is. Yeah.
I was going to ask you if miniatures were part of it, if you were leaning into theater of the mind, or you were going to offer rules for both. So how does that work then with, like, let's say I want to run it theater of the mind. Like, is it just like ranges? Is it just
everything in the game is a pretty simplistic range, like range 5, range 6. So you can run it theater of the mind, but you're going to have a lot more bookkeeping that way, whereas you can just stare at a battle board and be like, this moves 5 squares. This missile shoots 12 squares. That's a lot easier to do.
Yeah.
And you can use, I think Crafty Matt asked at the beginning of the stream if he can use like King of Tokyo minis. Sure, go for it. Like, finding good kaiju miniatures is kind of difficult. Finding good mech miniatures is super easy. Like, you can go down to Target and pick up BattleTech and use those miniatures as stand-ins in this game. Now, we have miniatures that are cardboard standouts that we're going to be offering for some of the more iconic kaiju of the game, and those will be a cheap option to pick up. But use D&D monsters, use Pathfinder monsters, whatever you've got, you should be able to make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Action figures.
Jack McCarthy. I really want to get into D&D, but I can't read. Can you suggest an alternative? It's like the same thing though. It's like, man, that's the thing is I appreciate what you're doing with this, where you're just sort of like, this is what I have a vision of, and this is what it's going to be, and I'm not going to like you said, you're being careful in how you word things and market it because you want people to try it still, but
Yeah.
you're not compromising on to which I think this is the advantage of being an indie designer too, is you're not compromising to the lowest common denominator of dumb person that's in this hobby. Like,
I was on an interview by the Mazer Squad, and they are exclusively Godzilla Kaiju guys. They've never played an RPG before in their life. They didn't know what one was. They'd never heard of Dungeons and Dragons before, and I had to explain it to them. And now they want to play it. So it's like I have an audience to appeal to of Godzilla fans and mecha anime fans and cyberpunk fans and RPG and wargame fans. So it's like there's something there for that can be for anybody basically. But I don't have any sections on Rule Zero in the game. The GM chapter doesn't have any paragraphs on if it doesn't work, feel free to substitute. No, we want to have enough oomph behind the rules where you can get a thorough understanding of the game and play it as intended because the game works that way. All the pieces come together and they work. We've done some play testing. There's a lot more that needs to be done, of course, as the Kickstarter goes on. But yeah, it's not the type of game that's designed where you can just rip out a whole system and have it be the same game.
So after you're gone, I can't just be like, well, Greg didn't play that way.
Yeah.
I want to get the super chat here from Jack McCarthy. Thank you, sir. He says, best of luck with the Kickstarter. I will be a supporter. So you got someone who's going to sign up and support already. Thank you for the $5. So I appreciate you though putting in that there's no Rule Zero. I don't put that in my books either. And so, I mean, obviously, I guess people could still Rule Zero. I don't have my own.
I can't stop them.
Yeah. But I think you have to have the balls to stand behind your own game. And I think this is the arrogance of a lot of the Rule Zero stuff, which is this person's like, you sat down and all of us, we've sat down and designed games. We've play tested them. We've ran them. We've thought about them. We solo gamed in them. We've done all these things. We've put a lot of thought and effort into this over, in some cases, months and years into our games. And then some Rule Zero guy is going to come along and be like, I could do better on the fly. And it's like, that's incredibly arrogant.
And it's also about a little bit about literacy, which is what you've talked about and we've talked about on stream many times. It's like in this particular game, in the combat section, which is large, granted, but I'm going to have indexes. Don't worry, it's going to have an index. But beam clash, there's a rule for a beam clash. You know what a beam clash is, basic expert. Like Goku shoots a Kamehameha and Cell does I'm a fire my laser. And they hit each other, and like whoever is stronger, the beam like overcomes. Like there's a rule for that in the combat that you can do. And I know somebody's just like, oh, well, there's no rule for a beam clash in this game, so I'm just going to make that up. No, there is. It's on this page. It's on this paragraph. Like you just didn't read the rules. Like, you know.
Yeah. That's cool. You're building an index. I'm trying to build the index in Atomic Punk, and I don't know what I'm doing. I never know what I'm doing when I'm building an index. I don't know what words need to be looked up. And
I'm terrible at indexes. I have no idea where to start. I never even use indexes, so like I don't even really think about them.
Yeah, I don't use them either, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know some people use them. I prefer a better like table of contents than an index.
Yeah,
but
same. You know, people that like indexes and they complain about lack of indexes in books. Write your own book, then you can all put all the indexes in you want. The whole book will be an index.
But Crafty Matt said, I thought you said Bean Clash. No. All I can think about was Steven Universe fighting with Craig of the Creek.
Jack McCarthy said, am I going to be on Blackwatch Games tomorrow? Yes, and I'm worried because Reddit said that these people were fascist, and I don't. I'm a little scared. Like apparently they have something to do with somebody named Jeffro, and I don't want anything to do.
Well, I mean, we've had Jeffro on, and
Yeah,
I'm just
we
joking,
were the
obviously.
we were the trendsetters on that one.
we
Yeah.
took all the heat. We bled all the
Yeah.
blood so that others could talk to Jeffro.
Yeah,
So
But yeah, one
We
more
walk so
quick
others can
note.
run.
That does bring me back to our original conversation at the beginning with Lancer about the politics. Are there politics in this game? Well, I mean, it's faction versus faction. There's interfactional politics going on. You can do that. There's a certain level of intrigue there. It takes place in alternate 1980s. What does it look like if the Cold War was still going on and World War III happened? There's a bunch of Russian soldiers wandering around in the wasteland. They're not your enemy anymore. Like, little stuff like that. But there's not like an overarching, like, political underlying message of, oh, we have to hold hands and be one world government. And there's nothing like that. It's just like it presents the setting as is. And like you can,
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You know what I'm trying to get
Yeah.
at.
well, I think when you're presenting a setting, and it sounds like you're doing that with this, there's sometimes you have to be able to present something that you might even personally disagree with, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe this section over here, this area over here, they're very like socialistic and communistic or whatever, and you're like, I'm not trying to send a message here. It's just this structure for this faction over here, let's say, it just makes sense for them to be this. And so like I'm going to present them as such. And like that, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's a political statement behind it. What is egregious and gross is when, it's presented from a single perspective, but it's so ham-fisted. Because here's the thing too, like you can present like a very one-sided perspective and have it make sense and have it be good. There's plenty of movies and games and things that like I disagree maybe with a fundamental message or presentation, but because it's done so well, it doesn't override the story or anything like that. It's you put up with it. You're okay with it because it has all these other things that you realize that this message or this position that's within the piece of media is just there to set up the story, but it's not. The story is in service to set up this very ham-fisted message. I can't stand that.
Yeah. SquarePeg asked what differentiates Titan D6 from something like Open D6, which is a version of the WEG D6 system.
Mm-hmm.
And to be perfectly honest, with quite a bit of tweaking and messing around, you could probably convert the two. I mean, because there's enough similarities between D6 dice pool systems. But this one is based less around the traditional like role-playing characteristics of like WEG and more around like the wargaming stuff. So it's about very big and swingy explosive damage, strategic targeting of body parts to disable weaponry. So I guess overall, to answer that question, it's a tough question. One of the toughest, but it's more leaning towards the war game type of strategy than the role-playing game stuff, I would say.
Yeah, WEG is a bit more loosey-goosey. It definitely is one of those games where the core mechanic is there, so you can adjudicate lots of different situations that would arise via the skills and everything like that. But I would say WEG Star Wars, at least at its initial run, although like when you look at the later supplements, it did get more like Traveler-esque in how it presented a lot of supplements with like planet generation and things like that, space travel and stuff. It got very specific, but it does lean into, I mean, WEG has the Rule Zero stuff in it, where it's like just the focus is the story, so just do whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has killing blows, it has wound levels, it has just different systems are added into WEG that are not in this game because you're fighting in giant mechanical war machines, right? So
RPGs are more than just the dice what they use or the dice system. There's subsystems, there's vision, there's like, so Like
Yeah.
that's like
Yeah.
a hard question to answer. Like, you know, like how does D&D differentiate itself from this other D20 system? Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Subsystems.
Got a $2 super chat from Mercurius. Thank you for your service, TVE. Well, you're welcome. I'm just all I do is I come out every week and just say what I think, for better or worse. So, you know,
And get in trouble for it.
Sometimes
Start
I get
another RPG gate.
Start
Yes.
another RPG gate. I started multiple, but yeah. So I mean, I think you answered it in the chat, but for those that are watching maybe later when the chat's not available or whatever, when are we looking to have this thing hit Kickstarter?
Gonna launch in the week of Halloween, so
Oh, perfect. Okay.
mid to late October. We're not gonna launch it on Halloween because that's kind of a bad time. But during that week sometime I think would be good. So we're looking about 3-4 weeks away at this point.
And you doing an offset print?
That's right. Going with the Lithuanians again if I make enough money, and God hope that I do, because I really want this game to succeed. And I don't, our past few books have all been paperback and they look great, but I want to do like a very nice, high quality hardcover. Like you've seen the artwork, you see the layout, like it needs very good color quality and like ink quality and printing. So
Someone's asking Squarepeg, do you have a blue sky? I don't know what that is. I don't know what blue sky
is that the thing that kind of like combines like all your social media and like gives you links to all of them?
I see it a lot on Twitter. People have like, you know, their handles as like so and so bluesky.com blah blah blah.
Yeah, I
And
need to build
usually
something
it's
like
people I
that.
don't like, but
I don't have one. I don't know what that is.
I think it's like just one of those sites that has like a conglomeration of all the different places you're on. I'm not sure though. I'll have to look it up. But
Blue
that might
Sky
be
is Twitter, but less toxic.
Oh no, I'm not going to be on Blue Sky. I got too much going on to be on more than one Twitter type of thing. Sorry, man.
Yeah, I just set up a Facebook account. Like I'm going back to using Facebook. I set up a page for like my stuff. I was like, I'm not really on there, and I should build a presence. But then I sit and think about it, and it's like, man, it's just like one more account I have to manage.
Yeah, I can't do it. I'm on like a Discord, like 2 Gilded servers where I'm the admin, and then I'm on a Discord server, and then I got Twitter, trying to keep up with YouTube, and I've just ditched Facebook. I don't even post on there because you post about your game on Facebook and people just actually, like that's all Facebook is good for.
I post about my games. It's just like weird, like Ukrainian boomers getting mad at me for no reason. Like what?
Who are you?
Yeah.
Facebook is good for running ads though, because you can really
it's good for ads.
You can really target ads. So that's like if you're I ran Facebook ads for Makuhito, and so that was actually kind of helpful. I didn't even spend all that much money, but it's just so good at they've had over 10 years to target people, so and their tastes based on the data. So their ads they hit people that are gonna maybe buy your stuff. So
yeah.
We have an Instagram, but I don't keep up with it. I might just give that to my co-author to keep up with because he's a big Instagram guy. He almost never goes on Twitter. So
makes sense since he's never mind.
Since he's a photographer. That's all stuff.
Yeah. At the same time, you have to go where the people are to get your stuff in front of maximum number of eyes. It's true.
Yeah.
Just become a successful YouTuber. That seems to be the premium way to get good Kickstarters these days.
True, like with Coville, but we still have a lot of time here, so I don't know if there's anything else here though, Greg, that you wanted to touch on that we've missed. We've covered a lot of stuff, but I want to make sure that people, I don't know if anyone in the chat has questions as well. If you still have questions, maybe we missed them, you can ask them again. But I want to see this be successful because it is something. Well, first of all, you're my friend, and I want it to be successful for you. But these sorts of things are. It's not a D&D clone or anything like that. It's a unique game and system. There's not much stuff out there, and it's kind of a risky move, because it's kind of like what I did with Makuhito, where not. I think maybe what you're doing is, in some respects, maybe more risky. I went with a very known system with 0E with white box, but I picked a setting that most people seem to kind of avoid like the plague, which is Mesoamerican. And
Yeah.
you're kind of picking something that is, there's not very many games out there for it, and it's a unique system, but I think it's really cool and you can do a lot of cool stuff with it. So
Yeah, it's like you go on Draft RPG, maybe you're a Battletech player, and you go and you're like, I want something more like Pacific Rim where you can fight like kaiju. You go on there, and the
Yeah.
search results are just filled with garbage. Like, and you're like, forget this. So like that's what I want this to be an answer to. I want someone to see this and be like, oh, this actually might be what I'm looking for. And then they pick it up and maybe they get some fun out of it. We've got some questions here. God of Moxie asks, can you use enemies as improvised weapons? Yes. I just finished editing that combat rule yesterday. It involves a grappling contest, so you have to succeed in a grapple, at which point you can lift and pick up your opponent and throw, slam, or smash him through anything on the battlefield, whether it's another target or whether it's like an obstacle. I almost put in some kind of system for like if you're playing it as a kaiju, you get experience points for destroying buildings. I thought that I thought that would be fun, like XP for destroying buildings. Like that's like, it's like it might make sense of like if you are the enemy faction and that is your goal is to wipe out humanity, why wouldn't you get XP for destroying a city? Right. And then like let's say you get far enough that the military comes in and tries to stop you. That's something to think about there.
Yeah. I think the thing with XP and rewarding it is that you always want, and this is this thing that with like Makuhito and other games, is you want to reward players with XP for doing the thing that you want them to do in the game that advances the game. And so
Yeah.
I could totally see that, like with, especially in a PvP setting where there's different motivations on either side. So yeah, the bad guys are interested in destroying things.
But I guess, that is part of the chart that you saw earlier, because like one
Yeah.
of a few of the categories are succeed in a mission, participate in a mission and don't die, that type of thing. And if your mission is to destroy buildings and you succeed, you get XP that way.
Yeah.
Some more questions. Can
this
you
one here.
District 9 your character? So he becomes a
Mutant alien thing. He becomes an alien essentially.
okay. Damn, I was gonna think he was never mind. I'm not gonna go into what District 9 is about. But yes, that was the trace contamination we saw earlier, where human beings are exposed to this alien gas that's everywhere, and you just start slowly mutating. And at first, it seems like a good thing because you get more stats, like it makes you stronger, more agile. But then you start like changing, and you eventually lose your humanity, and you're fucked at that point. Someone else will have to kill you.
Planet Tobor just said yell about Kathleen Kennedy for a bit and then launch your Kickstarter. That'll make you.
Oh yeah.
I'm so tired of hearing about Star Wars. I don't care.
That does that does remind me. This originally started as I emailed the director of interactive media for Legendary Pictures, and I was like, I'm about to make a Kaiju versus Mecha game. Can I do it for Pacific Rim? And I was like, this isn't going to go anywhere. And Legendary Pictures emailed me back and they said, this sounds intriguing. However, we've already hired someone to do that. And it ended up, that was that hero game. What's it called?
Everyday Heroes.
Yes. And I was like, damn it.
Yeah.
That's how that turned out to be.
Well, it's okay. That company went under and nobody plays that game. So.
Yeah.
If only they had hired me, maybe they could have done something with it.
Yeah. They went the terrible, they made a poor choice. They chose poorly. So
ascending armor class.
Yeah.
Well, it's not really kind of an ascending versus descending thing. Defense rating is a static value.
It's roll over though.
It's roll over. Yeah, but it's roll over the defense rating.
I'm very tired about hearing about most things. I need a break. I feel you. Yeah, Everyday Heroes has Pacific Rim. It is
Yeah.
kind of funny how there's just like that game has that. I've not looked at it. I'm assuming because it's 5e. Like isn't it? Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was like, it's just so ironic because I must have missed it by like a week. I
They
missed the
snatched up all
window.
this stuff.
I missed it by a week because the guy was like, "We just hired somebody to do this." Like after I emailed him, and it turned out to be them. And I'm like, damn it. But that's okay. I probably wouldn't have wanted to be restricted to an IP anyway because I feel like my shit's scored. So
yeah. Well, you know that's the balancing act thing here too. Is like I think what we've seen here and what you've shown, it's very unique. You're drawing from a lot of different sources, right? Like you're drawing, like you said, from Terminator. You're drawing from lots of different '80s movies, and I don't think you'd be able to do that with like a strict IP, right?
right,
Like Atomic Punk is in a lot of ways Fallout with the serial numbers filed off, but I kind of looked at other things and drew from them too. It's like, Half-Life is cool, and some of the stuff in Half-Life could easily fit in this game. So I think like when you kind of do your own thing, like yes, you don't get that big name brand on your product or on your book or whatever, but to me the ability to be creatively free and kind of make the thing you really want
Yeah.
yeah,
is
I agree.
at least for as the creator. It maybe won't get you as much money and pay the bills as nicely, but you had that creative integrity and followed your vision, and you don't have. I hate design by committee stuff too, and I don't know if like the Everyday Heroes thing and other things like that where there's like license agreements to make product X, like how much do those license holders kind of look over your shoulder and be like, actually, can you change this, and this? And it's like,
Yeah,
well, now the
I hate to,
soul of the game is gone.
I look at some of the Kickstarters and like because I'm always on the lookout for competitors, and it's always a team of like 10 writers, and I'm like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Like,
Yeah.
why do they need 10 woke ass writers to do what I did by myself? And Frank laid it out like, come on, and you did it by yourself, and the basic expert did it by himself. So you don't need a team of 10 writers. I don't understand what's going on here.
I think I've talked about this before. It makes us more agile, right? Like we can adapt and turn on a dime. Like let's say something comes out where, because you know your game intimately. You know what you've done. You know what you've written intimately better than like a team of people would. Where it's like, well, I don't know. Like let's say like there's 10 of us, and it's like, well, I don't know what Jim Bob over there's. He was working on the combat system, and I haven't really looked at that recently, so I don't know what he did over there. Or he was, he's been editing this other thing, and I don't know what he changed. Whereas, like, so if something comes out and it's like, shoot, we need to shift and turn on a dime. Like this thing came out, and we need to like capitalize on this, or we need to do this. Like they have, it's like a big ship that has to turn, right? Like it's not as agile, but us being smaller and doing everything ourselves, like it's like a speedboat. We can just kind of, like,
Yeah. Only one other person has helped me with this, and that was DM Blackwell. I don't think he was watching. But this was like 2 years ago. He helped with some of the ideas and moved beyond what that game was at that time. There's still a few things left over, but it's almost its own thing. Jack McCarthy mentioned when the movie gets optioned from the game, what actors would you cast for it? Now that's funny you ask because I contacted Michael Bihn's agent because I wanted Michael Biehn to do some kind of live action part for our trailer instead of the Sarah Connor chick that we got. And he wanted $35,000.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, big name guy. Cool, I get it. Not for me. I don't think I'll ever be able to afford that ever unless I'm Matt Colville.
It sounded good though,
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna Crafty's supporters. As an aside, John, if you ever want to take a break from throwing dragons at us every week, yeah, the White Box game has had a lot of dragons. It's living up to the name Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, come on, playing a WEG Star Wars game would be pretty awesome. One thing I've been thinking of is I'm getting around to Atomic Punk, and maybe if supporters are interested in that, is running an Atomic Punk game to kind of it does need a little bit more playtesting, does need a little bit more finessing. So, I'd be interested in running that as well. So,
Tora and Crafty Matt have both said they might want to help me playtest this, and that'll be great. I'm gonna start getting that ramped up here soon. I keep saying it and then Patio Cakes is always getting on to me. When are you gonna play this? When are you gonna play this?
Yeah, he was in the chat. I think he left already, but he's in the chat asking playtest 1. So
it's like I'm a bit of a procrastinator, but I kind of want everything to be 100% in place. And I know that's not how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to playtest like right away. But I'm just that kind of guy that has to have all the stuff laid out and ready to go.
What's
and then
playtesting?
I can, yeah.
I get that mentality because it's sort of like Vic and I have talked about this too. Is some things actually aren't that big of a deal, and so when you present the game as complete to someone or near complete, they're sort of like, "Oh yeah, this is fine. This makes sense." If you say this is a work in progress, and I still have a lot, I still have a long ways to go with it, blah 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 blah. People will like nitpick everything, and you can get to the point where you're getting so much feedback, which might be helpful, but it also might not because it's just like way too the feedback would start to, if you were to accept most of it or all of it or even some of it, would start to drive you away from what your original vision is. And I think that's one thing a lot of people sometimes don't grasp when you I don't know if it's a problem on my part when I present people with something, but is like they don't understand your vision, so they start suggesting things that you're like, well, no, that's not that. Yeah. I know that's not going to work because of ABCD, but you don't have that in your head. You don't have the vision in your head as to why ABCD is there and why it wouldn't work. So
yeah, or they just demand that you completely change the way your whole game works.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
D6, they prefer that way. It's like, well, no.
Yeah, D6 dice pool's cool, but could you make it a D10 instead or something? It's like,
I'm like, no.
Totally.
Feedback from playtesters can be very contradictory and frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like I took it to the Southern Fried Gaming Expo and sat in front of a bunch of board game people and had them look at it. And one guy was like, I don't understand what you're supposed to be doing in this game. I'm like, that's right. It's pretty obvious. Like you get in a giant robot, you get in the robot Shinji, and you fight monsters. Like, and I'm like, but I don't. It's like, and that type of like intellectual IQ of 160 type of guy comes around and thinks that he's like, if I was in charge, I would do this.
Well,
this.
The thing is, that guy's actually not 160. He's doubling his IQ. He's actually IQ. He's actually IQ 80. He thinks he's IQ 60. So,
but it's like, okay, you have cool ideas. Go write your own game, and we'll see which one does better.
Why does Jack McCarthy hate Evangelion? Because get in the robot Shinji. You cannot make a Shinji type wussy pussy in this game, unfortunately. The pilots you make are all assumed to have some kind of combat or military background, or perhaps they survived World War III, or they're like a wasteland, like scavenger, like scrounger type of person. Like, you're not going to be making a high school kid in this one, unfortunately.
Paul wants a Titans D20 when he needs more slop. So
yeah. Well, what I should do really is compete with Shadow Dark. I can make this BX clone with random level advancement tables and then just move all the resolutions to D20. And it'll be the best game of the year.
And get all AI art and
there you go.
Yeah, Ratchet Kaiju and
Crafty says, can you make it a D10 game and then charge us $225 for 20 10-sided D10s and a D6?
Yeah.
Good. Shinji was a terrible character, so they're happy that you can't make a wussy character. So there you go, Greg.
You just need to have a nice open license, Greg, so I can take the system and make like a Dragon Ball Z knockoff. Because you were talking about Goku and Cell earlier, and it got me thinking. And it's like, this system would actually probably work pretty well for that with the whole scalability thing. And Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to do. That's why it's called Titan D6, because we want to kind of release as a free download like a core rule system with some options for like fantasy, sci-fi, and horror, that type of stuff. I think it would work.
I think
Yeah, I
I
mean-
think a martial arts DBZ game would be funny. It makes me think of the because Artis Lori and the Cyberpunk guys, they made a didn't they make a DBZ game? They made
I
they
can't
made one.
remember.
I think they made one back in the day that uses like the D10 rules. And from what I remember hearing about it is that like it's pretty much useless unless you were pretty much useless unless you were saying. So
yeah.
There's that one game
Sounds
that
like the show.
somebody made that was like, oh, is it Joel who made at the game where
Yeah.
you
yeah,
Lone
Fists of
Wolf
the
Fist.
Lone Wolf
Yeah.
Fists. I almost called it Fists of the North Star because
yeah,
it's
it's like
he's
that's
riffing
what
on
it's
that.
supposed to be. I'm just scrolling through seeing if we missed anything here. I think we've about covered probably all the bases. We don't have much time left. I hate to end early, but anything else anyone has any comments or anything that you were thinking of at the beginning of the stream and now you're like, oh wait, I want to find out about this. Anything like that?
I mean, off the top of my head, I don't want to be a bad interviewer, but I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
But
I think we covered as much as what the material I gave you allowed for.
I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, it's not like something I normally would play. But I'm always open to trying things and doing things. And I know that you so there was sorry. I played DBZ RPG. So there was like a game. I've wanted to look for it. I can't find it, but just for nostalgia.
Yeah, I want to get some people to play the game who this isn't necessarily something they would normally play, and see if they have fun with it and like what they can do with it. That's always like a cool experiment to have, because like Victor says, he doesn't like being in a mech for reasons that make sense to me. Let's see what he can do with the on the ground rules,
Yeah.
or like
There's
stuff like
different
that.
there's different levels of, like I said, play that you could do. Like I could easily see this because of the war game element and the scalability of it, going from like a squad of dudes with rifles that are infiltrating a facility all the way up to like a ginormous mech battling a giant kaiju. There's, like I said, there's the potential there for lots of different stuff going on in a cool ongoing campaign with lots of players in it, like in a West Marches style kind of thing.
Yeah. And I like the idea. There's tons of scenarios that like get in my head, like playing as Solid Snake. You have to infiltrate the facility, but instead of destroying Metal Gear at the end, you get inside Metal Gear and pilot it. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
XCOM style campaign. Yep.
Oh,
The villains are somewhat inspired by XCOM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you make the system available to people, I'm sure I can come up with something to make with it.
The alien faction, the enemy faction, they are what's the word? Biomechanical. That's right.
Mhm.
So they combine organic life with machinery. So
So
their
clonals.
their titans are, they take the corpses of kaiju and they fit all this cybernetic stuff onto it and make like this monster, and that's their titan, one of their titans they can do. So it's like kind of disturbing in a way. So like if you fight against them, the titan might have like machine guns left over from whatever corpse that was scavenged, but it's like technically a kaiju, so it can do atomic breath too.
Yeah.
SquarePeg is asking about details of the license. Is this probably? I would assume you're going to probably use the Gorilla game license, which reminds me, I wanted to use that license you'd written in Atomic Punk. I'm probably going to do that. So
Yeah, we've got a little license that we've been working on and wrote. It's like a one pager. Probably going to do it for Titan D6.
Yeah, if you look at Shadow Dog's license, it's very easy. It's very simple. So I don't think you really need to worry about all. Well, because we were worrying about like, oh, we need to like make this foolproof and like have a lawyer look at it and all that stuff. I mean, well, Shadow Dog is like, yeah, just don't copy me like verbatim and you're good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't really care. I mean, it makes
yeah.
me sad if somebody made like a Gonzo Burger Punk Titan D6 game. I probably would jump off a bridge, but Victor's already
Well,
got that planned. So
yeah, exactly. Well, I do now.
thirsty,
So,
thirsty sword titans.
yeah.
Michael Connor, Bubblegum Crisis, and Votoms. The mechs in this game, the smaller ones for both factions, are very similar to Armored Trooper Votoms in a lot of respects. Not Bubblegum Crisis, so Bubblegum Crisis is a little more anime-ish than where this goes, but yeah.
I'm gonna write a game kind of more like Crisis. You know those PC games. So just like advanced like power armor soldier dudes. That'd be cool.
Oh, that'll be tight. Yep.
Yeah, so here's the Kickstarter page for people to check out.
Need more followers. Tell all your friends about it. I haven't
you've
done any
gotten-
email blasts or gone through any email lists yet. I'm waiting on that, and I'm gonna do that. So
Yeah, just pay the 99 to back a kit and
yeah, I'm gonna pay them. They have a decent service.
I wanted to answer, some Atomic Punk questions, and it might be
Sure.
useful for yours. Says, ooh, Atomic Punk playtest when, and I would also playtest this game. So what I think I might do is, because Atomic Punk's very near, like if you're on the Gilded server, you've had access to the PDF, but I'll share a PDF with the YouTube supporters here too, and Subscribe Star supporters. I'd love to have people run some games, run some one-shots, whatever, report back to me, tell me what you think about it. I think that's also a good way of playtesting games. I did that with Cow Punchers. I gave it, like when I was first starting my channel, I just had some random viewers like use a Google form to sign up so that I could send them the PDF. And I sent them the PDF, they playtested it, came back to me with feedback. It was pretty useful, put their names in the book as playtesters. So it worked out pretty well. And that was aside from like me running it for my brother and some friends and stuff like that at the time. I mean, you could do something like that, Greg, as well. You know, you could try and put out a call with amongst your followers of, you know, you could give them some bare bones rules to test out and
Sure,
have
some
them
filled out character sheets.
yeah, and tell them run the game, report back to me when you're done, and let me know what you think. And I'll put your name in the book as a playtester. I think people like that sort of thing.
That does remind me, though, that this book is not going to have any pre-written adventures like stuck in the back of it. Like, you know, if you look at Lancer or BattleTech or some of these other things, they have like devote like 50 pages to this long pre-written type of scenario. I'm not going to do that. People don't look at that for the most part. Maybe some do, but it's just really a bloated waste of space, in my opinion, to do that. I'd rather have the right cues and the right tools available for the GM to build their own scenarios and have like clear rules for how to do that. Because I want the GM to get involved. I don't want the GM to just read something that I wrote and run that. I want them to like get into it and figure it out and get involved and make their own game.
Well, I mean, if anyone, like when even with known IPs, for instance, Adventures in The One Ring, but Adventures in Middle Earth too, like you're reading the rule book and because you're already kind of familiar with the back knowledge of Tolkien and stuff like that. So you're reading it and you're like, I got some ideas. Like if I were to run this, I could do this, 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 and this, you know, as a scenario. Not anything written down, just like your imagination gets going. And it's the same with this. Like if you're reading, if a referee is reading a book, I wouldn't say this is a failure on your part because it shows you have like factions, you have monsters, you have all these things. These are all things that when you read them, they should get your imagination going as like a prompt or a jumping off point to run something and get scenarios in your head, kind of make the thing your own. Like when I read the monster manual for D&D and I kind of skim through it and I see a monster and you're kind of reading about what the monster's about and how it behaves and everything, you're sort of like, hey, you know, I got a good idea where I could make this monster like the centerpiece of a dungeon expedition or something like that, you know?
And that's why we designed the book the way that we do with all the artwork and the different color layouts. And themes, and because I want it to have like a visual storytelling type of style. Like it's not just going to be black text on white background. Now that has a place. I'm not saying that's bad. There's a lot of games out there like that. But if you're reading through the book and you get this feel of the atmosphere and the vibe of the game, all these thoughts are going to come into your mind of like Terminator Salvation. What if I ran a Terminator Salvation style game where we had to break out some human prisoners, or stuff like that? And like that's the type of thing that I like.
Yeah. God of Moxie says, I would prefer some tables and guides than pre-made settings. I kind of like that stuff too, where it's like you can roll on some tables and get some prompts and some ideas as to what you want the adventure to be about. Like, I think that is infinitely more useful than like reading a big old long 50-page adventure, and you're only going to end up using half of it because the players go off course at some point. It's not a script. It makes it kind of useless.
Oh, that's another point I wanted to bring. You keep bringing up these new topics, and that makes me want to think about the game. So it's not an open world style of play for the most part. Your pilots and Titan pilots have commanders. Like it's a military style environment almost. So you're going to get orders that you're expected to fulfill, perhaps from a general or a colonel. In some instances, it could be your superiors. There could be repercussions for you sucking it up on the battlefield. Like if you destroy like a $5 billion mech and walk away unscathed, you're going to get court-martialed. That type of stuff can happen in the game. You can't really, I mean, you could technically wander off and do whatever you wanted, but you lose the entire like purpose of the game if you do that.
It's mission based and not
right. It's kind of a mission based, like scenario based game.
Yeah, which is fine. I like that stuff. I like being just a dude who just gets sent on cool missions.
That's kind of what I tried to do with that one Traveler game a while back, which kind of bombed on. I kind of fell apart, but it was like, you guys were mercenaries on a ship and you had a commander, and he's like, he gave you options. He was like, we have this job, and this job that needs to get doing. Like, you guys can pick one. They all need to get done, but which one do you want to do? There's nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that kind of game.
No, I like that stuff
because it lends to like an episodic thing. I like games for the purpose of, we're sitting down to play. We're going to play a game for, I don't know, 2 to 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, however long the session is. And then at the end of the session, it's like it's done. And the characters are back in safety or back in relative safety. They're back at base or whatever. And they can kind of lick their wounds, upgrade them, their equipment, their weapons, whatever it is they're doing before they head out and do stuff again. But when they head out and do stuff again, what's nice, because I run games, all of us are adults. Some of us are dads and husbands, and we got lives and obligations. It's nice when there's no pressure to like, well, we paused in the middle of a combat last session, and so now Bobby's not here, and what do we do with this character? So I think that mission-based style, which this game seems to do, works well for that as well.
Crafty Matt wants to go and attack a kaiju with an A10. That was actually a setting kind of, not a plot hole, but almost a plot hole that I had to address. It's like, why are they bothering with these mechs when they can just use fighter jets and they'll just bomb from like 25,000 feet, Well, the answer is the alien gas is in the atmosphere and it interferes with electronics. There you go. You can't fly helicopters and fighter planes.
Kind of like a prison planet. So is that like how the trace stuff works then? Because that stuff, they like kind of harnessed it. Is that something like the aliens didn't intend? Essentially, was like, oh no, these little hairless apes are adapting some stuff that we didn't intend them to.
The humans essentially at the start of the World War III discovered how to disrupt the way that the aliens were controlling the kaiju, and then the kaiju turned on the aliens. And after that happened, the aliens, who have control over the nuclear arsenal because they're from Russia, of course, nuke the Earth to try and get rid of their own kaiju. but they didn't think that that's going to cause all this trace type of like material to like disseminate into the atmosphere, and basically they ruined their plans for colonizing the Earth by doing that. And now there's this shit everywhere that's like toxic to humans, and it's like a wasteland.
So the aliens are kind of they're not all powerful, all knowing. They make mistakes too.
No, the aliens in this are the lesser, kind of the lesser guard of their kind. They were dropped off on Earth to colonize it a long time ago, and they don't have starships. They can't escape. That was their job, and like they kind of get laughed at by their superiors who are off in the far distances of space. We're like, we left these idiots on this shit planet like try and take care of the job, and like they can't do it. It's like they're not incompetent, it's just that they're not like the elite masters. If the elite masters came back and attacked the Earth, humanity would stand no chance.
Paladin says, remember the Titans.
Yes.
Could have made that a tagline for your game.
Yes, Invader said.
Got it. Yeah.
It did remind me of that a little bit.
Well, cool. I'm excited. I'm excited for this. I think. I think we'll start wrapping up the stream here. I think we're getting towards the end. We almost made it the whole way. But I'm excited for this. I want to encourage everyone else to go check it out. Not just because Greg is my friend, but because he's put a lot of work into this, and I think a lot of effort and design into this. And I think it's going to be a pretty killer product that and game that a lot of people are gonna, I think, hopefully be interested in. If they're not interested in, I want them to be interested in it, because I think this is something. This is like the epitome of like a true, I think, indie game dev. Indie game design is this kind of stuff. So, and I think we got some. Beardy Ben is saying he wants it. So
Nice. You will get it. We get it. So the PDF I'll have available very quickly, like I usually do, and then we have to wait for Lithuania to do their stuff, and that's they're a lengthy process. But
yeah,
when the physical version does arrive, it'll be worth it.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll call it here. Vic, is there anything you want to plug people on?
I'm literally probably a couple days away from finishing the Core Modern Necessities book. So I'll be releasing the PDF for that hopefully soon. Basically, just
Nice.
crossing the T's and dotting the I's and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Going over it, seeing if I can like hunt down any mistakes I made and typos. So yeah, like I said, hopefully in a couple days people will get the PDFs. I'll put it on sale on Drive2RPG for more than what the Kickstarter backers paid. And then hopefully in a couple weeks I'll be able to do the the soft cover and the hardcover. So I tend to leave a little bit of time between releasing the PDF and the physical books, because I want time for people to be like, oh hey, you have a typo here, or you messed this up, so have time to fix it. But
That'll be
I'm just
kick-ass.
glad. I'm just glad that I'm basically getting towards the end of that stuff. Nice weight off my shoulders. So yeah.
We've got a super chat to address.
Yeah. Another one, $1.99 from Paladin. Thank you, sir. Any minis or cassettes like with Aeres?
Why, yes, actually. So our highest Kickstarter goal includes the soundtrack to the game, which is going to be released on CD, professionally printed CD. And that is composed and recorded by my co-author, who is a talented musician. And I basically went to Frank and I was like, Frank, I want this to sound like a PlayStation 1 game. Can you do it? I want it to sound like a PS1, like Alien Trilogy. Give me Alien Trilogy, MechWarrior 2, whatever we got. So okay. And so that's what it's going to be. We're going to have combat themes for each faction, atmospheric themes for each faction, and a few other tracks on there. So that's going to be a cool release.
Cool. Yeah, because you guys did some Dungeon Synth stuff in the past, so
yeah, we did. Yeah,
which was on a cassette.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Is that something that people will be able to get through the Kickstarter as well?
Yeah, we're gonna have an add-on for the digital download,
Okay.
and then the highest tier of reward on the Kickstarter will include the physical version, which will be limited, very limited edition CD.
Awesome. For me, Atomic Punk is nearly done. I think I'm gonna do like you, Vic, where you kind of I get really anxious and I'm like, I want the physical thing, but I think there's some benefit to like releasing the PDF first, because I've looked over it so many times. I've had a few other people look over it too, but you can only catch so much stuff. And
literally every single time I'll set up the print on demand copy, and I the first page I open just has like a massive typo on it, or like something. So
yeah, you're like, how did I miss this?
yeah,
I've read this page like literally 15 times.
Yeah.
How is it possible?
Yeah. And I think what I'll do, and I don't know if you would do this too for people that are gonna get PDFs on Drive-Thru RPG already, is I think when I release Atomic Punk, I'll release the PDF, and then I'll release the book, and I'll release the print on demand, and I think I'll send a discount code to people that got the PDF and be like, hey, if you want the book at a discounted rate, because some people like to buy the PDF and the book at the same time. I like doing that, especially on Drive-Thru RPG, where I can have the PDF and I can kind of skim it as I'm waiting for the book to arrive. So I think I'll do something like that.
Yeah.
But Titans of Fallen Earth coming soon here, towards Halloween here, end of the month. So sign up on the Kickstarter. I'll throw the link in the chat again. We're here on YouTube.
Yes, thank you.
Sign up. Get notified when it goes live. It's gonna. I don't think this is gonna be a game that you want to miss out on, especially for hardcover. I'm gonna back it. I want it on my bookshelf. So I'm excited to see it, and I hope all of you guys out there watching check it out and sign up to get notified and back the project, because I think this is going to be a legit game. Not anything out there like it before. This is going to be a unique thing to own and play. So
yeah, agreed.
I hope so. Thanks for having me on to talk about it.
No
If I don't cover too much ground with Blackwatch Games, I'll fall into the Macrease situation where he's basically repeating the same thing every stream.
Yeah.
Hey, I did that with I did that when I was doing the interview rounds for Makuhito. So
yeah,
that's
fine. I don't mind. I'll talk about it all day. I don't care.
Yeah, if it helps it do well to get it in front of eyeballs, so that you can get a cool indie project done and out there. That's a unique system. It's not a clone. It's not anything like that. It's
a clone.
All right, click on notify me on watch. What are you waiting for? Breakfast in bed? Another glorious day in the Corps. Day in the Marine Corps is like a day on the farm.
All right. Well, I think we'll end it here. Everyone go check out Titans of Fallen Earth. Give Greg a follow. I have his YouTube channel tagged in the video description. Same with Vic's too. Vic is sort of streaming every once in a while.
Yeah, I haven't done anything in a while, but I need to get back to it. Maybe now that this thing is almost done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So give those guys a follow. Give their channels a follow. Greg, are you still doing interviews with people, or is that kind of on hold till you finish this craziness off?
I'll interview with anybody anytime. I mean, the game is complete. I can talk about all the combat rules if I have to.
Okay. Well, I mean, like you were on your channel, you were interviewing people. You were interviewing other creators.
Oh, the Aeres interview series.
Yes.
Yeah, like I actually have 2 that I haven't uploaded.
Get on that, dude.
It's just Frank puts them together for me, and he's been too busy. And
so he's not perfect. Oh, okay.
He's not. His job is editing videos, so that's the last thing he wants to do is come home and edit more video. So it's hard to convince him to do that, but I do want to continue that series.
Yeah. Well, cool. Like so Greg interviews people on his channel. Vic has streams and he does videos. I would encourage Vic to do some Mecha characters again.
Yeah, I need to get back to that. They're fun.
I'll
do a
like
Titans
those.
one.
There you go.
Yeah.
But give those guys a like and a follow, and we'll catch you guys in the next stream next week. I don't know what it's going to be about. But we'll
Yeah.
figure.
In the meantime, while you're waiting on this, buy my furry games. For 5th edition, you can play as a blue-haired fox.
Nice.
So go ahead.
I thought it was for
Fun.
Castles and Crusades. That was the Wild
Oh, yeah.
Kid. You have the,
Yeah, we
you have
have that Castles and Crusades. No, certainly not
Play as a
that.
blue bolt box.
On that note,
We're out.
We're out.
We're out.
Uh,
All right, talk
Bye,
to you
man.
later. Goodbye.
thanks everyone for watching.